What up, what up? It's a live edition of Deep Look once again every Tuesday noon Eastern. I am the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Ultiworld Senior Editor Keith Raynor, and we've got a massive show for you today. So much to talk about. High school national invite coming up this weekend. Keith and I are both going to be there. So fired up for that.
Hard to believe.
It's crazy, right? Western Ultimate League Championship Weekend just took place. Premier Ultimate League Championship Weekend coming up. Crazy results in the UFA. Club season right around the corner. Lots to do. But first and foremost, we have a very exciting announcement today. We will be announcing the Players of the Year in the college division right after our trivia question of the week.
All right, Charlie, we'll see what you got for this one because we are going to be talking Players of the Year. And I went through and I looked at our D1 Players of the Year from years past. I think we go all the way back to 2014, 2013 maybe. And I looked at everybody who won the POTY in the same year that they won the Callahan Award. You know, originally, I think people saw these as parallel awards, but the results have been pretty divergent. So what three players have won both in the same season? You think you can come up with even one to start?
Wow. Okay, when did we first give them out? Sorry, 2015?
The first Player of the Year awards were 2014.
Okay. This is tough because I have a hard time remembering who won the Callahan Award. So I'm gonna say Mickle, 2014.
Right,
Surely he won that year.
I'll tell you, Charlie is 1 for 1. We opened up with Jimmy Mickle, who won the Callahan and the Player of the Year in 2014. Chat, why don't you see if you can help Charlie out? I want to tell everybody about the 20th anniversary of Break Market. It is their 20th anniversary year. They're celebrating. They're doing Instagram giveaways, so make sure that you check them out on Instagram. Give them a follow so you can get some of the free stuff. But they also heard that a lot of their customers love the bundles, but sometimes need just a jersey or a pair of shorts or something like that. Drop the pricing on all their core sublimated items so you can get $30 shorts, $35 short sleeves or reversibles. You get the same quality. You don't have to deal with any crazy prices. Keep it simple. Great customer service. They're pumping out orders right now, so make sure you check them out at breakmark.com and see if there's something good for you. Charlie, chat, can we come up with any more? There are a couple of suggestions coming into the chat of players, so we'll see if Charlie dips in there or if you come up with anything.
I'm trying to remember who won the Callahan in 2019. I think Dina won. No, I bet Verju won. And was that the year that John Stubbs won? Oh my gosh. I have a hard time remembering because I feel like Dina won POTY the year but didn't win Callahan. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's Dina. I'm going to guess Dina.
No, you were right that Dina Dina won POTY but not Callahan. You were correct on that.
Damn. Okay. I'm trying to think back through recent years. Don Colton.
That is the most recent. Don, who is 2-time Player of the Year,
Yes.
did in one of those 2 attempts also win Callahan in 2022.
And then I can't remember if he won Callahan or not. I genuinely cannot remember, but I'll guess Mac Hecht.
A fair guess. Mac Hecht, I believe, was he won the Player of the Year that year. But the actual Callahan winner, Matthew Johannes, finished second that year. So you didn't get there with this last person, and you got to delve back for it. It is Alika Johnston who won.
I was never going to get that.
2015. You were circling around a couple players who won both, like Jack Verzu, but Jack won POTY in 2017, and then didn't win the Callahan until later. Another person, Abby Hecko, also won both, but not in the same season. And we talked about Gooch, who won Player of the Year, and John Stubbs won Player of the year before they ended up winning the Callahan. So a couple players who've done both, but only 3 have done it both at the same time. And
the Stubbs Callahan Award
changes this year.
The Stubbs Callahan Award win was crazy. I mean, that's when the Callahan was like, all right, like this is not about the season you just had anymore. Maybe it never was, but it definitely isn't now. I think maybe some years it still is, but John definitely got a lot of credit for what he did the previous year when he won Callahan.
Yeah, that one's going to go down to the annals. I feel like, especially with the way that we were positioned to cover it, it was just like the John Stubbs year prior and that year, that like 2-year period, were just formative years for Ultiworld.
And Marissa Rafter, Jesse was robbed. Come on, what was that? That was bad.
Jesse did win Player of the Year that year, but yes,
that was really bad. Great player, Marissa Rafter. No hate, just didn't deserve to win the Callahan. Okay, so Keith, I think it's time to do our big reveals. Do you want to start with D1 or D3? Because we're going to get all 4 players who won their Players of the Year. And as the D3 crowning champion in the women's division as a coach, I will let you decide where we start.
Well, if you're going to give me the floor, let me represent the 7500 Club and announce the Division 3 Players of the Year. Do you want me to do? We'll do one at a time. Which you can pick the division.
Yeah.
Do you want to pick the division?
Why don't we start with your division?
All right. In the women's division, the 2025 Division 3 Player of the Year. Here are our first team All-Americans and also our finalists for the Division 3 Player of the Year. Milo Brown from Wesleyan, Zoe Costanza from Haverford and Bryn Mawr, Scout Noble from Wesleyan, Lainey O'Neill from Davenport, Amelie Steer, Lewis and Clark, Lucy Van Newkirk, also from Middlebury, along with Ella Widmeyer. And the Player of the Year in the division is Zoe Costanza from Haverford and Bryn Mawr, a near unanimous selection and a very deserving candidate. Also won the Donovan, so we'll be able to add to the list of players who did both in the same season, so to speak.
Tremendous player, so much fun to watch. Clearly one of the most dominant players at D3 Nationals. And I think for me, Zoe gets my vote for this award because even though she maybe wasn't the best player outright in the final, I thought she was the most valuable player to her team overall. I don't think that this Haverford Bryn Mawr team goes anywhere near as far as they do without her full all-around abilities, right? She was getting the disc back after turns. She was throwing the tough throws. She was scoring with her legs, like did a little bit of everything for them. Tremendous player. I think the only reason you even question whether she's just like automatic slam dunk, no doubt about it, is because they came up short in the finals, maybe didn't have her best game in that game, but really that was more about what you all did with Wesleyan defense than specifically about Zoe. So very, very well-deserved congratulations to Zoe Costanza.
Yeah, four-letter network style. I mean, you can't tell the story of the season in the division without talking about Zoe Costanza. So that would be one of the first or second things you're talking about. I think for me, I had no doubts about putting her first on my ballot. Over in the men's division, in the D3 men's, we'll take a look at our first teamers and finalists. LDB from Middlebury, Cole Fairfield from Bowdoin, Leo Fairley from Lewis and Clark, Jacob Felton from Davenport, Peter Mans from Middlebury, Nathan Wang from Chop, and Max Swearin from Lewis and Clark make up your finalists. And the Player of the Year in the men's division for Division 3 is Peter Mans from Middlebury. Get your mans.
Come get your mans. Yeah, what a lot of the tough decision in this division. I think there were a lot of really good players. Mans was really like one of the most polished players I felt like at D3 Nationals. Um, and I can see him going on to having like a really impactful future and in the club division. I don't think he's going to be a superstar, but he's going to be like a really solid player. And man, Middlebury just churns out the high quality prospects for the club division. Peter Mans is on the list. Yeah, just another great all around player.
Yeah, you want to talk about all around? Nearly hits the triple double at D3. 10 goals, 20 assists, 9 blocks. It's pretty
Crazy.
impressive to come up with big numbers like that, especially on a team that was obviously deep, that had other really key contributors. It wasn't like they needed him to drive the offense in all cases. They had a number of other players who were in award considerations. Probably really close in this division though. The votes were not separated by much. So congratulations to Peter Mans to adding another one to the Middlebury cabinet.
Indeed. All right, let's move on to D1, Keith.
All right. We'll swing back to the women's division. And your finalists for the award: Shigal Gelfin from Carleton, Lauren Gadu from Washington, Mika Kurahashi from UBC, Khalil Phillips from Colorado, Devin Quinn from UC Santa Barbara, Abby Schultz from UC San Diego, and Trout Waybright from Oregon. Great crop this year. But the player of the year...
Shigal. Oh, sorry, really quick. Only Shigal prevents the West Coast sweep.
Well, the player of the year and this year...
It's questionable because she's from Seattle. Continue.
Yeah, it goes all the way back to the Seattle roots. But the player of the year this year in the Division 1 in the women's division is Mika Kurahashi from UBC. And I mean, this felt somewhat inevitable after the final, but who stands to argue?
Who's arguing here? I think you could reasonably vote for Gelfand, but Kurahashi just outplayed Gelfand in the most critical moments of that final, and that's enough to tip the scales for me. I do think that Gelfand has an argument for being MVP, that Carleton needed her more than UBC maybe needed Mika, but Mika's been a top 5 player in the women's college division for 3 years, I think. So it was not a difficult decision for me. Mika, complete lock, just so nasty as an offensive cutter and release valve at all times. And you kind of have to squint to find a problem with the candidacy. I mean, they just about went undefeated on the season.
Unanimous winner, and well deserved. The way that her throwing game has evolved has just made her a total package and basically undeniable on offense. I'm very curious to see how she'll hold up at the World Games, but I expect her to be at least a mid-level player at the World Games, which is a pretty high bar to set.
I think she's going to absolutely cook. I mean, the combination of footwork and speed is hard to deal with. And as we are sort of alluding to, she has officially made the roster. Canada announced their final roster, and Mika made the team. No surprise. I mean, she's probably the number 3 player in Canada right now on the FMP side. If I had to make a power ranking, I think BDS is still number 1. Probably take Beaudry 2 and Kurahashi 3.
I mean, that's a nice core that could play another World Games.
Telling you, I'm telling you, Canada is going to be a problem this year. People, they finished bad last year. People are counting them out. They're going to be really tough.
Well, they get another award in this case. We'll move on to the men's division for D1 and take a look at our finalists. Tobias Brooks from Colorado, Dexter Clyburn from Cal, Ben Dameron from UNC, Eli Diamond from Western Washington, Micah Glass from Oregon, Declan Miller from Carleton, and Anton Orm from Cal Poly SLO. And I mean, Charlie and I had talked about how this was an interesting race. The race for first team All-American was pretty fascinating. I'm sure we'll talk more about that as we get down the road, but I'll go ahead and announce this year's player of the year, Declan Miller from Carleton. So the champs in both D1 divisions take home, and in our recent guests, if you didn't get a chance to catch up with them of our past 2 episodes, we've been joined by Mika Kurahashi and Declan Miller. Promise that didn't influence our voting
Deep look
here, though.
bump. Deep look bump.
Yeah, I'm saying if you want to win, though, it couldn't hurt to appear on Deep Look.
Yeah, I mean, look, my initial thought, like coming straight out of nationals, I was like, Brooks. And as I spent some more time, I went back and I rewatched the final. We saw some of the defense Declan played against Tobias directly in that final, and just the big moments that Declan had for this team. Remember when they lost him to the injury like right before nationals? Was that 2 years ago or last year?
2 years ago.
You could see how much it devastated them to not have him out there. And like that's only become more true. I mean, he does everything for them. Ultimately, I voted with the majority on all these picks.
Yeah, I mean Charlie is one for chalk. We know this. That said, I mean
Kyle Duffy says Brooks
was
robbed. Is the regular season meaningless?
So there were all but 2 voters who selected Declan for the top spot for Player of the Year. One other vote for Tobias Brooks, and mine was my vote was for Micah Glass. Regular season meaningless ? I don't think so. I mean, Carlton was pretty good in the regular season. Declan Miller was their best player in the regular season. And the fact that he boxed up Tobias Brooks in the final makes it harder for me. I mean, that's like a head-to-head win, like, and I'm not talking team. Like, he outplayed Tobias Brooks often while covering him, and was part of the reason that Tobias Brooks had a subpar final. I think, to me, honestly, the 4 players that I came down to considering in the end were Declan, Micah Glass, Tobias Brooks, and Anton Orm. And Declan, the way that he was playing both ways and playing defense at nationals is like a great case for him. Like, that to me is the best case for him, aside from, they won the championship, but obviously that had to do with more than just him. I was like, really came down to like flipping back and forth between him and Micah Glass. I ended up picking Micah Glass in the end because I thought that he had a stronger regular season, and that he was more vital to his team ultimately. But to me, it was like splitting hairs between the 2.
I'm very interested. I mean, you have to have been the only person who picked Glass for number 1.
I
right?
was the only person to have him as my number 1 spot.
I don't think it's like outrageous, but I feel like Oregon's performance. I feel like Micah was better last year almost. Is that crazy to say?
Interesting.
Like, I thought he was really good.
I
Don't
think
get
so.
me wrong. I mean, he had 12 goals, 19 assists, a block on 7 turns. Tremendous.
Their stat lines are like
Tremendous.
almost are very, very similar at nationals.
Yeah. I mean, you look at any of these guys' stats, they're going to be fantastic. And I think Brooks had 9 goals, 19 assists, 11 turns. And the thing is, at this level, like, the margins are pretty thin. It's like those extra few turns that Brooks had, like in the final, basically decided the championship. And Declan played a big role in that, as you said. I'm a little surprised you picked Micah, but I don't think you go wrong with any of those 3 players. I think, if we voted only on the regular season, my vote would have been Brooks. But
mine too.
Nationals is about half weight. So it matters a lot. And it's not like Declan didn't have a good season or like didn't play during the regular season. That's not the case.
No, Brooks was just absolutely scorching hot in the regular season. I mean, he played a great season.
Won them Easterns. Yeah.
Miles says Michael would have gotten more first place votes if he hadn't cut his hair. I mean, he was. Was it intentional that he like was wearing a Dylan Freechild costume? I don't know. That's what it felt like to me.
Hey, Shout out to the elders.
Levi,
right?
Levi in the chat asked about what did the voting look like for D3 men's. It was very close. And if you want to get the full voting breakdown, we will have that come out after our full slate of awards, which will continue through this week. We've got Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Breakout Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year, and the All-American second teams all on the way. And we will have the full voting breakdown. You'll be able to see what every ballot looked like, who got votes, who didn't make the list but ended up getting votes, because we vote all the way down through the third team, basically. So you'll get to see a lot more information if you're a subscriber.
Give us, who are the other players who are close to the win for the POTY in D3 men's?
In D3 men's, the other players that were in the mix were Jacob Felton, Max Zwerin.
Yeah.
Mostly those. LDB was, and Nathan Wong were close as well, but there's a little bit of a gap between them and those top three.
Yeah, it was an open contest this year, I think. All right, we got a lot to get to, so we're going to keep it moving. Coming up this weekend, we've got the High School National Invite. Every year I say it, and I think every year it's true. Better than ever. We got such a tremendous lineup of teams this year. And let's take a look at the streaming schedule right off the top here, because you could tune in and watch tons of games all weekend long. We're streaming 3 games around throughout the weekend. Starts Friday, not Saturday. Remember this, Friday. So we've got Nathan Hale taking on Amherst in the girls division up first on the showcase field. And that's a fascinating game. Hale's been a really strong team in Seattle. Amherst has maybe been the best team on the East Coast. Hard to say how they might compare with Paideia. But Amherst looking like they're in a huge up year. And, we don't quite know how the East compares to the West until this tournament. So that's a huge bellwether game right away, to see, are the East Coast teams going to hang in there with the top teams from the West? Hale's not the best team in Seattle. There's a lot of Seattle teams here. They're not the best team. They're good, though. Roosevelt boys taking on Edina boys. So we've got I think they're the Seattle Invite champs, Roosevelt, playing against the Minnesota State champions, Edina, who've been playing really well here at High School National Invite over the last couple of years. And we've got Lakeside out of Georgia, a newcomer to HSNI. They'll be playing the defending champs, Green Canyon. That game also super interesting because Green Canyon hasn't really played that many good teams this year, but they've been dominant when they've played high school competition. We know they have some really great systems, some very strong players. Lakeside's been a top 5 team all season on the East Coast. How will they stack up? Again, that cross-coastal question mark. Finally, in the girls division, we've got Alexandria City taking on Washburn. Washburn, the top team out of Minnesota. Alexandria City actually got surprise upset in the Virginia State finals. So we'll see how they show up against one of the best teams, maybe the best team in the central part of the country. Keith, what are you excited for?
Well, I love this true national feel in the sense that you don't exactly know what these teams are going to bring because they mostly played within their own groups. So having the best team from the eastern part of the country play against the best Western team, and then you have a team like Washburn out of the middle of the country. They're coming from a really notable community. How will they compare? It's a little funny to hear you talk about Amherst and Paideia. It's transporting me back to when I first started playing 20 years ago, because at that time, those were the only good teams, more or less, at least until you got way out to Seattle. So it's a bit of a throwback to hear those teams talked about as the best teams on the East. And Lakeside, I don't even think you know this, Charlie. I have a deep personal connection with Lakeside. Is
say more.
5
Did
minutes
you battle with them
from
in the Paideia era?
Where I grew up. No, they didn't have a team back then. But when I went to private school to go to Paideia, all of my friends went to Lakeside. So Lakeside is I spent a lot of time there and around it. It's funny now to see it at this level playing with this ultimate team. And I'm very curious to see how it shows up because that's right in the heart of my hometown. That's me going way back. And there's already a Blake Holt shout out in the chat from Green Canyon.
Blake Holt is nasty.
Yeah, it's a name we're gonna get used to.
He's
Very
he's
great,
a sophomore
really
now.
strong slate. I believe so.
Sophomore for Green Canyon. He was one of the top 25 players last year. Maybe top. Was you say top 10 at last year's HSNI as a freshman?
Probably around there, yeah.
In the conversation, one of the most polished handlers we've ever seen at that age. So we'll see if he can lead Green Canyon back to another championship. What a statement it would be for them to come out here and dominate again. Certainly, let's talk favorites. The girls division, there's a very clear favorite. It's Roosevelt. This is Chloe Hakimi's senior season. This team has come up just short the last 2 years. South Eugene out of Oregon has dashed their hopes, but Roosevelt is undefeated. They've been the best team all year long, and anything short of a championship would be a big disappointment. They are stacked. They have multiple U24 players on their team, let alone U20. This should be their year, Keith, but you still got to go out and win the games.
I mean, those are the power programs, right? We've been talking about them for a long time. It feels a little bit like a redux. Like, do you think that another team can knock off the collision course between potentially Roosevelt and South Eugene? Like, can the triplets at Summit pull it off, or is there another team that you think could make an upset?
I mean, look, I think you can't count out those Oregon programs. Both South Eugene and Summit have been very strong. El Cerrito out of California, maybe not going to quite have the firepower, but a team to keep an eye on. And then it's really about, like, is Amherst going to be good enough? Because remember last year, Northampton finished, I think 5th, maybe tied 5th, and they were seated pretty, in the middle coming into the tournament. And I think that this year's Amherst team is probably the best team we've seen from the New England area in quite a while. Are they going to have the horses to beat Roosevelt? I really don't know. I don't think so. I think Roosevelt's a pretty clear, dominant favorite. But hey, the 5 seed, Garfield, who has lost to Roosevelt all season long, but lost fairly close. I mean, they're going to be hunting for revenge, and they know that team inside and out. If a couple things break their way, anything's possible.
And I saw some really good young players from like Washburn and Strathaven last year. I'll be curious how those players have developed, even though they probably have to fill the shoes of some significant folks who might have graduated. Provo's a team I've never gotten a chance to see before. They'll be repping Utah, which always has had a strong showing at HSNI. So there's a lot to chew on here.
Big day on Saturday, pre-quarters, first round, quarterfinal, second round, and then we split the semis up, and then finals into the evening, and girls final at 7:30 p.m. under the lights. I am fired up. It might be a chance for Chloe Hakimi to finally get her HSNI title. And before she heads off to Carleton, Keith, oh my goodness, Carleton Syzygy going to be crazy next year. We'll have lots more on HSNI in our previews. And then, of course, tune in all weekend long. We've got live on-the-ground reporters. Make sure you sign up for a subscription. You can come into the Discord. Check out all the live notes there. Let's talk about, on the boys' side, I think it's way less clear who the favorite is. You've got a lot of really good teams that I think have a reasonable case for being number one. Jackson Reed comes in as the number 1 seed. I don't think they've lost yet. And they've been the best team on the East, no doubt about it. But J.R. Masterman out of Pennsylvania, playing close to home, very strong. Arlington has been on the come up over a couple of seasons. They got a ton of big athletes who mostly play other varsity sports. And so how will they stack up? Their athleticism could be a real problem for some of these teams. They're not like that traditional Amhersty type, people who've been playing since middle school type of team. Then we've got Lakeside out of Georgia. I already talked a little bit about Green Canyon. How will the Seattle teams look? They haven't really played much since their fall season. Garfield won the state championship. It's been a bit of a down year in Washington State, but you know that they're still going to be loaded with good players. So We'll see how they hold up. And then Rekka, Edina coming on strong late in the season. I really think you can go pretty deep into this tournament and still like see potential. Even Open World Learning, who lost to Edina in the Minnesota State Championships, has been very strong this season. And I think that, Edina benefits from knowing that team really well. Other teams maybe not going to be able to deal with some of their strongest players the way Edina has.
Yeah, it's surprising to see, Edina all the way down as an 8 seed. And by connection, OWL, I think it would not surprise me if the Minnesota teams uh, outperform their seed in general before it's out. But some new programs that we have not had a chance to see, that don't have a lot of history playing at this tournament and are not going to be used to it. When you look at the likes of Masterman or Rekka or OWL or Lakeside, Independence, like there's a lot of teams that are not going to have the experience of having been here before, and that's often true
Sure.
with this tournament because there's so much player turnover. Most players aren't getting a lot of play time when they're freshman or sophomore, even if they're on the team. It's not too different from always, but you always want to keep an eye on those teams that are going to be getting on the big stage for the first time, because it can have an impact. And I think that could favor teams that are more used to it, like Edina and Garfield and the like, Green Canyon.
All the way down to the bottom seeds in these pools, there is danger. Like there's no teams here that are not going to cut it. Like Strathaven beat Arlington to basically earn a bid back at the Amherst Invite, and they're the 13 seed. They beat the 3 seed. That's right. Albany has been so good out in California and on the West Coast. Washburn beat Owl at Nequa Knockout to earn a bid and get into this tournament. Wissahickon has been roller coaster ride. I mean, one week they look bad. The next week they look like one of the best teams in the East, and they're the last seed at this tournament. I don't know where you pick as your pool of death. I think I say pool B with Masterman, Rekka, Owl, and Albany, just because like we don't quite know how good Albany is going to be relative to the rest of these teams. And remember, Berkeley came into this tournament a few years back with Leo Gordon and that whole crew, and they were not a super high seed. They might have been a 3 or 4 seed in their pool, and they won the tournament. So don't think that pool play is going to go to chalk, because there's no way.
Yeah, but you got to pick pool D, right? Lakeside has been awesome. Green Canyon, we know what they're about. Wissahickon, they're not out of Grossberg's. There's still one left. And Independence has been strong this year. So, pool D's got to be the scariest pool. But
let's look at the girls'
I'm super ready to be. I would never say that we know exactly what's going to happen going into this tournament. This is a highly unpredictable tournament. Seeding is a guessing game. Sorry, Charlie.
It is. No, it is. And
yeah,
and I will note the seeding is done intentionally to balance regionally and avoid rematches as much as possible. So the seeding is loose at best. And on the girls' side, where's your pool of death here, Keith?
I think pool C. There's a lot of ways. Like if that Amherst team is good, then I think this pool is pretty scary. You could have like multiple teams that make semifinals out of this pool.
And how good is Holy Family? I mean, we haven't seen a lot of them, but they mostly dominated.
Yeah, pool C to me is the one I'm looking
at. It's going to be an awesome tournament. So make sure you tune in all weekend long. Keith will be there commentating. I'll be there producing games, and looks like last I checked, I'm going to check again right now. Last I checked, the weather looked pretty good in Allentown area. Well, now it's going to be raining a little bit. So we should have, looks like most of the rain will be in the evening on Friday. So maybe we'll get out of there with no rain. Highs around 80. And then, chance of rain throughout the day, but not, we might not get much rain. So at least it won't be like blisteringly hot. Temperatures in the upper 70s to low 80s. You want to pick your champs? Let's pick our finalists and our winner. Pick our finalists and our winner. We'll start on the girls' side. It's easier.
I'm gonna take I'm going to take Roosevelt over. Do I venture into the wilderness for this pick? I think that, yeah, I'm going to go Roosevelt over Summit.
Oh, okay. Summit going to get revenge on South Eugene after beating them
Yeah.
most of the season, but then getting kind of blown out in the Oregon State Championships. I'm taking South Eugene versus Roosevelt in the final again. And this time, Roosevelt comes out on top in the rivalry revenge game, and it's going to be drama under the lights.
Usually I would say like, the same two teams again, like boring, but like there's so much history here and it's like great.
Yeah,
It's great theater and they're two great
it
programs.
really
So,
is.
uh, I can't even be mad if we end up with the chalk again. It's good
All right,
chalk.
boys' side. It's great chalk. Boys' side, what do you think?
Oh, I have
I think I'm gonna
no
go.
way.
I'm gonna
To
go
like other
crazy. I
confidence.
think. I think I'm gonna go crazy with my picks.
I'm definitely gonna go crazy. So you can go crazy first.
I'm gonna go Arlington versus Green Canyon finals. Green Canyon repeat.
Wow. Okay. I'm also gonna go Green Canyon in the finals, but I'm going Lakeside and Green Canyon in the finals, rematching in pool play. Lakeside
Ooh,
gets the win.
ooh.
They're bringing one back to my house.
Wow, that'd be kind of sick.
This is gonna be Grady. It's gonna be Grady again. This is gonna go back to the Frankie Fernandez, Aiden Downey, Adam Miller Grady squad. They're gonna show up and beat the big power program that everybody knows.
Deirdre points out in the chat that Strathaven has both of its teams going for the first time in program history after the girls team attended for the first time last year. There's lots of little nuggets like that, and we'll have a bunch of that stuff in the preview. Just teams making it for the first time. Some teams been here many, many years in a row. Some really good teams did not get in this year that had a case. It was, especially in the boys division, very tough to make some of those final decisions. So super excited. We'll see what happens. I have no idea what to expect. It should be a great tournament.
A good
And
time.
Keith, I'll see you there in a couple of days.
A good time, weather allowing.
Um,
That's what you should expect. This tournament's always a lot of fun.
I think it doesn't look like it's going to be bad. That's for sure. If we get rain, it won't be much, and the wind basically non-existent, Keith, and that's really what you want to see. It was pretty windy last year. All right, let's move on. Western Ultimate League Championship Weekend took place this past weekend out in the Bay, and Keith, they finally did it. The San Diego Super Bloom take home the championship. Let's break these games down. What did you see from the Super Bloom this weekend after it was looking like maybe Kayla Helton wasn't going to play? That was kind of like a whoa last minute shocker. Turns out she did
Yeah.
play. So crisis averted.
Yeah, not listed on the game day roster that San Diego posted, which was wild. I was like, this is really important information that we need to discuss. I mean, we talked about how roster fluctuations could have impacted when we were doing our picks last week. And we didn't have Kale Helton maybe not playing on the board, but yeah, crisis averted. Although I will say this was like, I feel like quiet by Kale Helton standard. This was not like, oh, San Diego, we're just going to ride Dean Elamelic and Kayla Helton and Christopher Junis to a championship. They took care of business in the semis against Seattle. Seattle made a late push to make that game look really close. It was not like I think San Diego felt like they were in control for much of the game. They were playing a lot of zone. They were playing pretty deep. They played pretty well in that one. And then in the final, they actually got broken to start. They went down 2-1 to the hometown team, and the surprise squad, the Bay, gets the first break, and then San Diego goes on a 4-0 run to go up 5-2. And from there, they mostly don't look back. They took half 8-4. They were up like 16-11. They were not 16-11. They maintained a good lead throughout much of the game, mostly on the back of their defense. They're generally on blocks. The Bay just could not convert any of their break chances. That was tough. The Bay does get it close. It was 11-10, and the Bay Area got the disc with like 3:45 left or something, 3:30. left. And they missed on a deep shot. San Diego converts the other way on a Dina Elamela cuck. And they score to make it 12-10 with a little under 3 minutes to go. And then the Bay just couldn't really convert after that. When you come out receiving with that kind of time, you basically need to score like within 60 seconds or so to have a real shot. And they couldn't even convert on, I think maybe 3 chances to score there. And as the clock wound down, you could just see it was more and more pressure on them to score quickly. And so that couldn't hold up. So, windy game, 12-10 final. And for most of the way, San Diego felt like it was in control until the Bay made a late push, which sounds a little bit like the semifinals. We got to talk as well about the Bay after this, but your thoughts on Super Bloom taking home a title?
Well, I mean, it feels like they've been one of the best programs in the league for a while, and as a franchise, it feels like they already should have won one. So, I think they were the favorite going in, and I against my better judgment didn't pick them, and so yeah, I'm not shocked. I mean, I think they've had the talent to do it for 3 or 4 years in a row now.
Yeah, they earned it. They had a great regular season.
Yep.
They were a team that we had our eyes on from the beginning. And I think it's almost more surprising that it took this long than it is that they did it, because the talent is so good, and the team has a lot of great structure. Like, they've always been deep too. I'm sure they were pretty proud to do it in such a defensive way though in the final.
Yeah. It was exciting game. I mean, Bay made a little bit of a push, got it within 1, but just not quite enough down the stretch. And San Diego, I think, maybe benefited from the windier conditions. And yeah. Just a great team, great season.
Absolutely.
You have more thoughts on the Bay?
Yeah, I mean,
making a run at home.
I told you last week we were gonna get an upset. It was too hard to figure out which one, but we were going to get an upset, and boy, did we get it. The Bay comes out and kind of put it to Colorado, to be honest.
Yeah, Colorado kind of a disaster weekend.
Yeah, the Bay went up like 10-5. Like, it was the kind of thing you turn on, you're like, what is happening? What did I miss? Kind of thing. Just McKinley McQuaid and this defense looked awesome for the Bay. They were dialed in on their deep game. They were playing super efficient, especially after the turn. They just, like, their D-line was just merciless. They were playing great defense. A lot of times, you'd see Colorado, and unless they were throwing to Abby Thorpe, who had a record-setting 8 goals, they just, like, their first look was almost never there. They just always had to pump and look for a second look, and that over time just kept generating turns. We talked about on the show, is Talia Ward going to play with the Bay during this, because she missed some of the regular season, but she does, and she was awesome. I mean, she was just connecting on hucks consistently. That was a big part of their success. Her and Robin Fenig and Han Chen really drove a lot of offense for the Bay, and hats off to them. They came out and with a really, really excited crowd, used that home field advantage, played great defense, and really were hitting on the deep shots.
All right. Well, congratulations once again to San Diego Super Bloom. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we'll get you ready for the Premier Ultimate League Championship Weekend. We've got UFA results in a continuingly crazy season, and mailbag question of the week. Stay with us. Welcome back to Deep Look. Keith, the National Ultimate Training Camp is not just about Frisbee. After spending over 6 hours out at the fields, campers are ready to relax and still have fun. There's a rec hour before dinner. Keith, I know you're a nutsy guy. What did you like to do post fields?
Oh my gosh. Definitely, like we'd go get food and then just like hang out. We'd play like card games and stuff. There's often a lot of goofiness going on in the cafeteria when we would eat. Because back then we were in the cafeteria. So there were often like games and stuff happening then as well. But it's sometimes you got to catch a nap. I don't think we didn't have a pool when I was there. You were hanging out with other players and hanging out with the counselors. People were playing guitar and stuff like that. It was a great time.
Well, now you can go swimming. You can get individual throwing lessons with a counselor if you just want to be living that Frisbee life completely. You can check out a slideshow of photos from the day's games, play Can Jam or Pitch Nut, take a nap, whatever you're looking for. Camper counselor game is always hype. But there's also team night where teams compete for tournament jerseys. They got Frisbee school on Tuesday night, and you can choose a class to attend like sports photography or how to try out for a team. And don't forget to bring some swag to trade on trade night. There is a waiting list for session A right now. There's also a waiting list for session B. But there are still some openings for session C in just a little over a month from now. Scholarships are also available for those who need some financial support. The deadline to apply is June 16th. That is in 6 days. You will not get another update from Deep Look on this because the deadline is before our show next Tuesday. So make sure that you take the moment right now to go to nutsy.net and sign yourself up, sign your child up. Go to Nutsy. Your ultimate career will thank you. Keith, PUL Championship Weekend time.
We should do Deep Look live at Nutsy one year. Let's pull up. We'll do a live Deep Look show with an audience. Right. We'll get the kids coming in for the mailbag question, maybe answering some questions of their own. We'll do some like live polling, live Deep Look at National Ultimate Training Camp 2026. Book it.
All right, put it on the calendar. PUL Championship Weekend is coming up, and the undefeated New York. Wait, what? I'm sorry. Sorry, New York Law. What? Indy Red goes 2-0 to take the top spot in the North Division. They beat Philly Surge to basically not quite clinch, but almost clinch a playoff spot. And then, shockingly, they defeat New York in a back-to-back on the road, and they will be the 1 seed going into championship weekend. Absolutely wild, Keith. 14-13 in overtime, the Red over the Gridlock after the Red scored with just a couple of seconds left to go ahead against the Surge 19-18. Kind of a disaster for Philly. And this Indy Red team, I feel like people have been sleeping, and you've been saying, Keith, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. And they are now, they won't be the number 1 overall seed. I think the Shadow definitely deserved that credit, going undefeated. But now it's going to be DC versus New York in semis.
Yeah, we didn't have that booked. Someone from India was like, "Thanks for believing in us," to me at the game, and like even I didn't see this coming. Them taking one of these games felt like a possibility, but not even a coin flip. I think I would have made them less than 50% to win either of these games, let alone win them both. Like I thought they would be good, and they turned out to be great. They really went out and won these games too. Like I still am uncertain about the moment at which they forced overtime, both in whether it legitimately happened before the clock struck 0, and why there was a throw within 10 yards of the end zone by their opposition with like 10 seconds left on the clock. Like you got to just huck that as far as you possibly can, right? 100%. Crazy moments, scenes.
The choices there are like easy reset or just punt for sure. Not jam up the sideline to covered player.
Yeah. Crazy moment.
So what that means is it's going to be Red versus Radiance and Gridlock versus Shadow. It will be London Invite weekend. So Shadow is going to be missing a couple of very important pieces in Claire Trope and Cammie Groom. How much does that weigh on their chances of beating this New York team? And we don't know exactly what rosters are going to look like, so that's the big question mark. But is New York the clear favorite here? They might have been anyway, but
is Columbia going to be at London Invite?
They're not going to London Invite, I don't think.
I didn't think so.
Who's on the super team roster though? Is Vale playing super
question.
team?
We're talking super team later.
New York's going to basically be at full strength.
Well, they should be missing Liv Player, right? She's an alternate. Although she was also not at this game. They were missing Vale and Liv Player. They have some injuries, so it'll be interesting to see if some of those clear up for New York. They also didn't have Abby Hecko this weekend. So, their roster's going to be affected. I'm seeing in the chat Vale not on super team. So New York is going to be, in a great position. Also of note that Dawn Colton will be missing from Raleigh when we get to that matchup. But yeah, I mean, I think you got to make New York the favorites against a Claire Tropeless, Cammie Groomless DC team.
And how about on the other side, Red Radiance? I mean, I think conventional wisdom, just if you kind of not really thinking about it very much, you say Radiance, but with Dawn out and the way that Red has looked, are they actually the favorites? Is Indy the favorite to make the final?
Unquestionably, the Red have to be the favorite going into this game. They just like summited a Hercules. They won the hardest division by winning back-to-back games on the road against the two best teams in the division, and they're going up against a Raleigh team that has not been super convincing. Yeah, if you just looked at the rosters on paper and you haven't paid attention all year, yeah, maybe you can arrive at Raleigh. And I'm not saying Raleigh can't win this game, but if you're just making your odds based on what we've seen over the course of the season, the Red have to be the favorite.
Aaron says, don't forget Poultry Days is the same weekend. Hopefully the Red don't lose half their team to Poultry Days. If they wanted to go to Poultry Days, they would have thrown against Philly.
They do have an Ohio contingent. Why don't they just play Championship Weekend at Poultry Days? Problem solved.
Now that is what I'm talking about. You got a lot of fans out there. You do that. So otherwise, like, what do you make of the season overall before we make our picks?
Well, we certainly turned up the dial at the end there. Along the way, it kind of felt like we might be on a bit of cruise control like we were in the Western Ultimate League. It's so hard in such a short season to really get a sense of who teams are. And I think that leads us to kind of like jumping to conclusions potentially. But we ended up with a really dramatic finish where there were basically like play-in games happening on week 10, which is exactly, I'm sure, how the league was hoping it would go when they scheduled Austin and Raleigh on the last week. I can't imagine they thought this Indy doubleheader would have the implications that it ended up having. But ended up being a pretty exciting close to the season. Certainly makes you excited for where Championship Weekend is how that's gonna play out. It stinks. It really stinks about the London Invite thing, though.
That's tough. That's really tough. And I don't think that's really something you could easily foresee when you were setting your schedule many months ago, because it's not even clear that they would have known that these teams were going to be going to London Invite. So yeah, it's too bad. It sucks to be missing stars for such a big game, but it happens. So we got Red Radiance, we got Gridlock Shadow. Keith, I'm taking Gridlock over Shadow. I think at full strength, I probably would take DC, but if Gridlock, assuming that New York has their full lineup, because Volley makes a big difference, a really big difference.
Yes.
But like Jolie Krebs, by the way, is just so nasty. Like I'm wondering if we're gonna see Krebs. I'm not gonna say she should have made the World Games team, but I feel like we're gonna see a heavy dose of Krebs on like Team USA's in the future. She is so good. She just absolutely cooked yesterday. Was it yesterday? No, 2 days ago against Red, and has been cooking for now multiple seasons. But I'm going to take Gridlock over Shadow. I'm going to take the Red over the Radiance. I'm a believer after watching them what they did this weekend. And they just genuinely have an offense that like gets holds, and then they have a really tough zone. And that rematch, if is what happens, red gridlock, that's going to be a tough game for New York to figure out. I think it's going to be really tight. Ultimately, I will take the gridlock with a couple of reinforcements to win that game, and have that time to kind of like work on stuff specifically like that troubled them in their zone offense against the red. And I think they're going to win back-to-back PUL championships.
Sorry to disappoint, but I'm taking the identical set of picks for mostly the reasons you outlined. I think that I already kind of laid out the case for why I would take New York and Indy to make it to the final. I think that Indy they do have a great fluid O line that is not over reliant on any individual player. So you can't just like sick your best defender on them and think that that's going to disrupt them. I do wonder about how effective their matchup defense would be, and if I don't know how much of that they're even going to bother with against Raleigh, but we'll see. And I do think that if they rematch, New York's going to have more time to have adapted to this zone defense. Getting back the talent that they have is going to be obviously huge, and the fact that they were short on legs. Yeah, Raleigh will not be playing on a back-to-back necessarily in the same fashion. Like, I guess they are going to be playing a road back-to-back, but so will New York in that sense. But they also were like a stone's throw away from winning this game anyway, even with the absences. So when you give the reinforcements and the extra time to prepare, to me, that's enough to pick the gridlock. You are muted, Charlie.
Indeed, I am. Thank you. It all goes down this weekend. Don't miss it. And let's move our attention over to the UFA, where things continue to be a little topsy-turvy, and who knows what the hell is going to happen in the East Division. Let's take a look at the results from this past weekend. I was at the New York game, commentating alongside Evan Lepler, and New York dealing with some injury problems. Calvin Brown out with a concussion. They lose Oliver Chartok on their very first O point to a hamstring, and they just fell apart in the second half. Ended up getting blown out 23-15, and their season is on life support, Keith. New York 3-5, sitting in 5th place in the East. They've got DC again this weekend in what's basically a must-win game in New York.
Yeah, not exactly the type of team you want to play against. DC's been playing much better, I feel like, as of late, and it's tough times in New York. I guess they should be glad that they don't have to play the Alley Cats, because New York teams just can't beat indie teams lately. But you got the Liberty you're carrying, so they're 8-0, but otherwise, it's been kind of tough for New York. I guess the Yankees are playing well too, but yeah, I'll
never forgive the New York Empire for not covering the spread, the measly -2.5 spread with their like super team against the Indy Alley Cats like 6 years ago. It's like my biggest loss ever betting on the UFA.
I remember we used to talk about this back in Bet's Perspective. Like you couldn't bet even during their best days. You couldn't bet New York to cover big spreads. They just never did. So I'm sure a lot of people in our circle got burnt by that over the course of the year. But yeah, I mean, it just I don't know what's going on with this New York team. I feel like we haven't seen the stars come to play at the level that we're used to. Jack Williams, this was supposed to be kind of the breakout Marquez Brownlee year. I imagine his focus may be elsewhere, but I feel like he's been kind of quiet. We haven't quite felt the same presence from Antoine Davis. Max Shepard started off the season hot. He hasn't quite turned into the kind of like centerpiece that we thought he might. JR's playing pretty well.
They
and Yacht's
sent him off
well.
to the D line to go rot. I mean, it's individually like people are playing okay. It's just like feels like chemistry and injury problems.
Yeah, it's a tough scene out there.
But who knows what's going to happen in the East? Let's run down the rest of the East results, and we can talk about some of the other crazy stuff. Montreal destroys Philly 29-20, then goes on the road to Toronto, and they get smoked 28-18 by the Rush. Boston takes care of Philly, 22-14. Boston definitely looking like the best team in the East. And as a result, you've got the 5-0 Boston, and then everyone else has at least 3 losses. DC sitting at 4-3 in second place, and then Philly and Montreal tied at 3-4, New York at 3-5, and Toronto at 2-4. So, obviously DC is the favorite to take one of those playoff spots, but if they lose to New York this weekend, which is definitely possible, New York is capable of beating them. Then who knows? I mean, it's really anyone's game, and it's going to come down to these, final 6 weeks of the season.
You got to say it's super exciting out there in the East. Every game feels like it matters, and every game feels like anybody can win. I mean, even Montreal's out here taking wins off people. Philly was on fire, and now they're not. So it's been a very dramatic regular season where it's like just so much pressure on these teams week in and week out.
Atlanta had a chance to go into Carolina and really put a dash in their hopes of making the playoffs, and instead Carolina comes out with a 21-19 win and delivers the Hustle their third loss of the year. So now Flyers are only 1 game behind Atlanta in the loss column. While Atlanta is certainly a big favorite to make a playoff spot, like things could get a little dicey, and Carolina's, trying to keep their season alive. And then out west, Salt Lake stuns Oakland in OT, a game in which Oakland had a pretty sizable lead. I think they were up 3 with like 3 or 4 minutes left, and they blow this game. Just absolute disaster class down the stretch. They go to OT. Salt Lake comes through, and a huge win out there as now the Shred take over the number 1 spot in the West at 5-1.
I mean, you said that the Hustle have lost 3 games. They lost them all in a row. I mean, they're ice cold right now. I don't know what we make of them. Like, are we selling? Are we selling? Are we selling on Oakland? A lot of question marks with the early season winners. The teams that had asserted themselves out of the gate as contenders. Now you're starting to wonder, was that just a bit of a mirage for these teams?
I still think I take Atlanta and Oakland to come out of their respective divisions, but it's certainly a lot less clear than it was 4 weeks ago.
I mean, Austin and San Diego have both looked pretty good, like pretty reasonable
Definitely.
challengers. So that division is harder than we thought. And
could you imagine
Atlanta's,
if the Hustle blew it and didn't make the playoffs? Could you imagine?
Don't say things to me like that as an Atlanta sports fan.
They've already got 9 games in, right? So they're home against Houston. Come on, that's a win. Let's chalk that up to a win. Then they have a kind of an important game against Austin at home, and then they play at Carolina to close the season. So, you give them one more win, and where does that put them? That puts them at 7-3. So even if they lose the other 2 games, they go 7-5. Like, could they really miss out at that point? I guess if they lose to Carolina again, it's possible.
Yeah, and like if they lose to Houston, now we're in full pan. Like you're
No, they can't lose to Houston. Right? That's not possible. But it's a little sketchy because they might, if they lose to Carolina, they'll lose the tiebreaker in that last week. So that if they finish with the same record, they would be on the outside looking in. I got to do some schedule watching here. Like, who does San Diego have down the stretch? Because that also matters a lot. Do they have easy games or let's see. They have Vegas. They're home against Oakland, at LA, at Oakland. So that's tough because they have those 2 Oakland games.
Yeah, it's going to be a dramatic end to the season. It definitely feels like we are on the way to like coming into the last week talking about point diffs and do or die games.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's get to our mailbag question of the week. This comes from Sean in the Discord. What are the over-unders for the super team, the Tokai super team, against the various World Games teams at London Invite? So London Invite is coming up this weekend. The mixed division is for sure the star of the show. We have the U.S., Canada, Australia, Germany, and France World Games teams. Then we have the Canadian and Australian U24 teams, and we have the Tokai Super Team. Wow. Here's the roster for the Super Team. Take a look. You want to run them off, Keith, for our pod listeners who are not watching on the YouTube?
Well, shame on them. No, I'm just kidding. I listen to podcasts all the time. All right, here's our
Like
our
and
list.
subscribe.
Alex Atkins, Jorge Bula, Manuela Cardenas, Lola Dam, Ben Dameron, Sarah Eklund, Quinn Feiner, Jack Hatchett, Tanner Johnson-Go, Flora Kalertz, Martina Kimichova, Carmen Lagala, Aurora Leshnik, Connor McHale, Laura Espina, Jacob Tam, Christina Talusta, Luca Tognetti, Nick Whitlock, and Angela Zhu. And
That's
yeah,
a squad.
I'm not even going to go down the rest of this staff.
As a squad. They went out there and they like snapped up some of the like USA cuts who had the most like grievances probably. And you'd love to see that.
Can I just say that I feel like I'm partially responsible for that. Like it happened I feel like some of that happened in the Ulti-World Discord. We're like, oh my gosh.
That's true. There was some like direct recruiting happening in Discord.
The guts, and somebody was like, I'm available. Reach out to me.
That's wild. Yeah, great stuff. The Canadian and Australian U24 men's mixed teams will also be playing this weekend, so that's cool to see. I think every single game will be streamed. There's 4 games per round, and they are alternating divisions by round. So it's like there's a women's division round, and then there's a men's division round, and then there's a mixed division round, and so on and so forth. A little bit of shortish games. Game slots are only 70 minutes long, so there could be some surprises there. Anyway, let's get to the mailbag question. What's the over-unders against the various World Games team? So
who are we talking
first
about?
Up,
who's in attendance?
Let's see who they're playing, first of all. They're playing Germany. Okay, so what's the spread in that game?
Is that their
Super team minus 2?
First, how many games?
No, their first game is against the Australian U24 team.
Okay, so they got a chance to get their feet wet to figure some stuff out. I mean, I think minus 2.5 is probably pretty good.
And then they're playing USA under the lights in the 7:40 p.m. round. I think it's
US.
I'll let you make the line.
US minus 2.5. Minus
about
1.5.
right.
I'm gonna go US minus 1.5. I think this seems pretty
stacked.
Sounds
about right. They're stacked, but they also are not really going to have played together at all.
It's true.
So how much does that weigh into things? I mean, it's definitely like the US players on this team are going to just be like going all out. Like the motivation factor is obviously massive. So I like that game to be close, but I do think the US wins. If you give me 1.5, I'd probably take the US. But 2.5, it's going to be a tough call.
Yeah, I would not be surprised at all if they win. If Tokai Super Team wins, it would not surprise me at all. Nor would it necessarily alarm me. They're good enough that like they would contend for a medal at the World Games. So like I wouldn't be like, oh, the US is in trouble unless they get dogged.
Mm-hmm. So then there's semis and finals on Sunday. Question for you is, what are you looking for out of these World Games teams this weekend? Are you simply looking for like, what is the, line shapes and like the chemistry, or are you actually like wanting to see them like get wins? Do you care about the results, I guess is my question.
I care about the results in so far as they're a measure of how the teams are playing. Like it is not, if you had a choice between a team winning in a really fluky way versus winning, like losing in a way where they were like doing the things they're going to be doing at the World Games, then I would take the losing, doing the things you're going to be doing at the World Games. But like in that sense, I'm oriented for the process, but like these teams should be really good and they should be winning. And it's not a long enough timeline to the World Games that you can afford to waste quality reps with, like, you can't really go full. You shouldn't be to the point where you're going full process to the point where you're not trying to do the things that you need to do on the field. Like, there's no developmental period here. Uh, you need to get all the quality reps you can, especially if you're a Pool B going into the World Games, because you're going to start off in the pressure cooker immediately. So I
Yep.
think that you're going to see teams more or less in the shape that they want to be at World Games, because a couple of roster adjustments here and there with alternates and nursing injuries and things like that, keeping people healthy. But I think you're going to see teams, especially as you get later in this tournament, try and round into the form they want to be in, because you're not going to have a lot of other chances to do it.
I understand why these teams bring their alternates, but doesn't this just set you up for a quarterback controversy? Like, what if Christian Boxley goes out there and looks like the best player on the field? What do? You're not going to cut somebody, right? And put and activate him to your 14. Are you?
They would not.
I mean, if you are doing the right thing to maximize your chances of winning, and you see that, whoever it is, right? I've just used Boxley as an example, but any of these teams playing with alternates, if your alternate is like dominating, I think you have a responsibility to maybe make a roster change. So I don't know if anybody would actually do it because they don't want to hurt feelings, but what is the point otherwise of bringing them to this tournament?
What's the point of setting your roster prior to the tournament then? Like, why?
That's a great point.
So
honestly,
I don't think anybody.
I don't think they should have,
because otherwise there'd be nobody should have set their rosters. Otherwise, I think that, like, using the American team as an example, I think everybody who's on the roster for the American team knows that there is a chance that Christian Boxley could be the best player on this team at the London Invite. Like, they've already know what Box can do, and there were probably points at tryouts in which he looked like one of the best players. Like, I think that the margins for making the team are so slim that, like, the rest of the team would not be surprised if one of the alternates is going off. Like, to me, that feels like they would be like, "Yep, we knew that person was really good. I feel confident because they're not going to be playing against us at World Games." I see what you're saying, but, like,
incredibly
it's totally
awkward.
worth it to risk the potential awkwardness and controversy to can get the health benefits of not having to play with 14 people at this tournament. So, like, no question in my mind that I would take that trade off.
Yeah, I mean, of course I get that. I get that. It's just such a weird. Imagine being one of the alternates who's going to this tournament. You have to pay for your ticket. You got to go to this event. Like, everyone's telling you, it's such an honor to be a part of this, 20, which, like, it is. But then you don't get to actually go to China and play with the team. I just find I would despise it. I just feel like I couldn't handle that. Or I would be really motivated to, like, outplay everybody else and be like, "Yeah, you should have taken me, idiots."
All I can think is that I still wish that you could take the alternates to like, you could set a game day roster, basically. Maybe for each day, or maybe you can only sub a player in and out once or something like that. Like, once you're subbed out, you can't come back in or something.
Yeah, but
I would prefer
limitation.
that. I'm sure I understand. I understand there are constraints. There are reasons why they don't just allow more than 14. But and I love the pressure it puts on those 14 to be really elite. Like, it's hard to take players who you can't specialize really. And I love that. I love that about this tournament. I like having 14 in a game, but I think having access to 14 in a game and a couple of subs outside of that game, particularly to navigate injury situations, probably most importantly. But I think I want to see the best players playing at the highest level, and so ideally I would see that. But that's all I
predict a roster controversy. Either somebody
Discord,
plays so well that they force the conversation, or they actually end up making a change that's, like, under the guise of an injury or something.
I
don't
think we'll
specify that to the US
either.
Just in general.
In our Discord, yes. I think that the locker rooms are, so to speak, are already prepared to manage this situation. So I'm especially, I can't say for other countries, but in the US,
you are overrating human nature.
You're underrating Maddie Sang's mastery of human nature. I mean, it's Maddie Sang, dude. Like, if anybody could talk a team through this, it's that guy, right?
We'll see. We'll find out. Gonna be watching the games. It's streamed over on the Ulti TV YouTube channel. There is, I don't exactly know what's going on. There's some games are streamed. Then they also have like a AI camera or something. But I think 3 of the games, that's what Benji said in the chat. 3 of the games will be streamed. The other game will be recorded for later release. So exciting. Looking forward to it. That is going to do it for today's show. Do not miss our subscriber bonus. Right after this, we're going to be live in the Discord talking about the World Game schedule. It just dropped. So we're going to look at the lineups. We also have most of the final rosters. So we'll talk a little bit about individual games, when they happen, who's got the inside track to a semi spot, who the hell's getting out of Pool B. Good luck. For Keith Raynor, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long. We'll talk to you in the sub bonus right after this. We'll see you here Tuesday, noon Eastern next week. Bye-bye.
All right, let's have a race to see who can hit thumbs up first.
I already smashed an hour ago.